Have you ever heard the saying, "Don't poke the bear"? Well, today's story is about a bear who learned a very sticky lesson about not poking a beehive. It is a classic tale that shows us why losing your cool can sometimes lead to a whole lot of trouble. So grab a snack, get comfortable, and let's dive into the story of a very grumpy bear and a very determined swarm of bees. Deep in a lush, green forest, where sunlight dappled through the leaves and the air was filled with the sweet scent of pine, lived a large, brown bear. This bear had one thing on his mind and one thing only: his stomach. His days were spent on a constant, rambling quest for the most delicious treats the forest had to offer. He'd dig for juicy roots, climb trees for ripe apples, and fish for plump salmon in the rushing streams. But his absolute favorite food in the entire world was berries. Sweet, plump, juicy berries. One sunny afternoon, our bear was ambling through a particularly dense part of the woods. His nose, a finely tuned instrument for sniffing out deliciousness, was twitching this way and that. He was dreaming of blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries, his mouth watering at the very thought. As he pushed his way through a thicket of ferns, he stumbled upon something interesting. A huge old tree had fallen, probably in a storm long ago, and now lay like a giant, moss-covered log across the forest floor. Curiosity and the hope of finding a hidden stash of grubs piqued his interest. He began to circle the fallen tree, his powerful paws treading softly on the moss. He sniffed along its length, his black nose twitching. And then he caught it, a scent. A scent so heavenly, so intoxicating it made him forget all about berries. It was the rich, golden aroma of honey. The bear's eyes lit up. He knew that scent well. It meant a beehive, and where there was a hive, there was honey, the sweetest prize in the entire forest. He peered closer at the log and saw a small opening in the hollowed-out trunk. A steady buzz, a low hum of activity came from within. The bees were home. Now this bear was big, but he wasn't foolish. He knew that bees could be protective of their treasure. So he decided a little reconnaissance was in order. He approached the log with great care, moving slowly and quietly. He lowered his big head and began to nose around the entrance to the nest, trying to peek inside and gauge just how many bees were there. He was so focused on his mission, so lost in his honey-fueled dreams, that he didn't notice a tiny striped sentry returning to the hive. This little bee had just come back from a long trip to a nearby clover field. Her legs were heavy with golden pollen, and she was carrying a full load of sweet nectar to add to the hive's stores. As she buzzed toward the entrance, she saw the massive, furry snout of the bear blocking the way. She didn't need a second guess to know what he was after. Her home, her family, and all their hard work were in danger. Instinct took over. With a furious buzz, the little bee zipped straight for the intruder. She aimed for the most sensitive spot she could find, the bear's tender black nose, and delivered a sharp, painful sting. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she vanished back into the safety of the hollow log, her mission complete. For a moment, the bear was just stunned. A sharp, searing pain shot through his snout. He let out a yelp of surprise and anger, shaking his massive head from side to side. One tiny bee, how dare it! All his careful planning, all his stealth was ruined. The honey was right there, he could smell it, and now his nose was throbbing. And that's when the bear made his big mistake. Instead of backing away, nursing his wounded pride and his sore nose, he let his temper get the better of him. All reason flew out the window, replaced by a hot red rage. He wasn't just going to take the honey anymore. He was going to destroy the entire nest. With a furious roar that echoed through the forest, the bear launched himself at the fallen log. He sprang upon it, attacking it with all his might. His powerful claws tore at the wood, ripping away huge splinters. His strong teeth bit into the decaying bark, trying to tear the nest wide open. He was a whirlwind of furry fury, completely consumed by his anger. He thought he was teaching that one little bee a lesson. But what he actually did was ring the dinner bell for disaster. His violent attack on the log was like shaking a hornet's nest, but much, much worse. The vibrations and the noise sent a signal of extreme danger throughout the entire hive. Suddenly, the low hum from within the log turned into a deafening, angry roar. It wasn't one bee that came out to investigate. There wasn't 10. It was the whole swarm. Hundreds, then thousands of bees poured out of the hole in the log like a dark, buzzing cloud. They were a unified, angry army, and they had one target: the bear who was destroying their home. The bear stopped his attack, his eyes wide with horror. He had made a terrible, terrible miscalculation. The air was thick with furious bees, and they descended upon him all at once. They swarmed over his thick fur, crawling into his ears and up his nose. They stung him everywhere. On his face, on his back, on his paws. Each sting was a tiny needle of fire, and there were thousands of them. The bear's rage instantly turned to pure panic. He swatted at them wildly with his paws, but it was useless. For every bee he knocked away, 10 more took its place. He roared in pain and terror, but that only seemed to make them angrier. He was completely overwhelmed. There was only one thing he could do. He had to run. He turned tail and bolted, crashing through the undergrowth with the angry swarm in hot pursuit. The cloud of bees followed him, relentlessly stinging him as he ran. He was a big, powerful bear, one of the kings of the forest, but against this tiny, unified army, he was helpless. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life, his only thought to escape the agonizing pain. Up ahead, he saw a glimmer of blue through the trees, a pool of water. It was his only chance. With a final burst of desperate energy, he charged toward it and, without hesitating, plunged headfirst into the cool water. He submerged himself completely, holding his breath until his lungs burned. The bees, unable to follow him underwater, buzzed angrily over the surface for a while before finally giving up and returning to their damaged home. Slowly, painfully, the bear emerged from the water, gasping for air. He was a sorry sight. His fur was soaked and matted, and his body was covered in painful, swelling stings. His face was so swollen he could barely see. He whimpered and dragged himself onto the bank, utterly defeated. As he lay there, shivering and miserable, he had a lot of time to think. He had found a treasure, a whole log full of delicious honey. He had been so close, but a single tiny sting had made him lose his temper, and in his blind rage, he hadn't just lost the honey. He had provoked 1,000 more injuries and ended up with nothing but pain and humiliation. He had turned a small problem into a massive, painful disaster, all because he couldn't control his anger. The moral of this story is a powerful one. It is wiser to bear a single injury in silence than to provoke 1,000 by flying into a rage. Think about it. The bear could have just backed away after the first sting. His nose would have hurt for a little while, but that's it. He could have come back another day or found another source of food. But his uncontrolled anger escalated the situation, turning a minor annoyance into a full-blown catastrophe. This is something we can all apply in our own lives. Sometimes people say or do small things that hurt or annoy us. It could be a thoughtless comment, someone cutting in line, or a minor disagreement. Our first instinct might be to lash out, to get angry, to retaliate. But like the bear, that can often make things so much worse. A small argument can blow up into a huge fight. A single angry email can sour a whole working relationship. Losing your temper can turn one small sting into a whole swarm of problems. Sometimes the strongest and wisest thing to do is to take a deep breath, let it go, and walk away. It's not about being weak. It's about being smart enough to choose your battles and protect your own peace. Enduring a small injustice is often far better than starting a war you can't win. So the next time you feel that flash of anger, think of the bear and the bees. Ask yourself, is it worth destroying the whole log? Or is it better to just walk away and find some peace by the water? Thanks so much for watching and listening to this story with me today. I hope it gave you something to think about. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more stories and life lessons. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a bear and the bees moment in your own life. See you in the next video. Bye for now.